Welcome back to another video. So as you just seen, I fitted a sprocket using this 3D printed part. Same with the Evolve rim. That's just a standard Evolve wheel. It's the same 3D printed part that fits both. We're gonna give a huge shout out to Liam from Radium. So these are 3D printed parts that I'm just test fitting, and if everything's all good, he's gonna CNC them and we're gonna be able to buy them in alloy. So we can fit chain and sprockets to standard Evolve hubs, also MBS setups. As you can see, there's multiple stud patterns. So it's the MBS, I think these are the Rock Stars, the Evolve wheels, and another stud pattern as well. These are made to fit the AliExpress 3-hole sprockets. I think they're 29 millimeters, advertised that. Very common, very cheap. You can get all this stuff really cheap. It's very common for the Chinese pit bikes. As you can see, you can get all different size sprockets. This is like a 70 something. This one's a 47. You can get a 50, you can get 66s. You know, there's heaps of different sizes. These chains and joining links are so cheap. If you've got belt drive and you're sick of breaking belts because you go off-road, this is what this is kind of aimed at. Anyone going off-road, you don't want to fork out $500 to $1,000 for a set of gear drives. This is your next best option. Anyway, let's make sure these fit on the trucks all right with no clearance issues. All right, so this is the Evolve wheel. It's very close in here, but it misses. So that's the Board Dynamics truck hanger. So the 270 hanger works sweet. All right, I brought you over here, and this is an Evolve truck. Perfect. I'm also going to try the MBS truck now. Same again, this wheel isn't pumped up, so it will look egged. But that clearance is perfect. That sprocket is running perfect. But that's really good. The only thing I might change is the distance from the wheel. See, what I noticed when I had quite big sprockets on my last setup, I had this gap here and I used to run into clearance issues, but the closer I got the sprocket to the wheel, the better. So these sprockets are only made to run a 25H chain, which is quite small. So we could definitely move that over, you know, at least a few mil. Get that as close as possible without it worrying anything. And that'll give us the best chance of clearance depending on what size sprocket you run. See, normally on an 8-inch wheel, I would run the 47 tooth. So on an 8-inch wheel, this is the size sprocket I would normally run. When it's chain and sprockets, you can run a really small sprocket on the motor and you have no chain skipping problems. You know, so this works really well. So 47 to say a 10 or a 12, depending on how much torque and top speed you want. Definitely reckon get that closer to the wheel. There's plenty of room there. And yeah, you'll have really good clearance. And if you're going through the mud and the wet, you're not gonna have belts breaking on you constantly. So many people have seen my videos on chain and sprockets and want this adapter plate. But a mate just made a one-off thing on a lathe for me, spent a couple of hours doing it. He made a set for his board and my board. We definitely aren't able to mass produce them or anything like that. So now that I got into Liam, once again, he's doing awesome stuff for us. I'll link Radium Performance in the description and go check out his website. We'll get back onto him, maybe make it a little bit thinner, and we'll see what we come up with. So instead of being a 1 to 2 week wait, by the time he made some changes and machined them up and sent them off to me, it's been about a 4 or 5 weeks since I filmed the first part of this video. Ozpost told us that they lost this parcel. It turned up, so I'm absolutely cheering. How good do they look? They're parts for the Bro build. And these, how good do these look? The flat side to sit up against the hub, and then the side that locates the sprocket and bolts into the hub. They look too shiny to put a set of cheap Chinese chain and sprocket kit on. Is what it is. Right, so the first step is to pull all the screws out and then jump around this other side and pop these nuts out as well. The screws are going to go in from the back side now, and the nuts are going to be on the outside. So we'll pop them out. Now, I've had to get longer screws for these. I wasn't 100% sure how much longer I needed to go, so I think these might be a little bit too long. Okay, so that's the outside with the valve. I'm going to flip it over. The screws are going to go in from this side. Maybe a little bit too long, good enough for me. So the standard size bolt that was in it is a 35mm thread length. The size that I got here and took a guess on, it's about a 50mm thread, and that protrudes about 5 or 6 mil. So if you could get, say, a 45mm long thread, that would probably be pretty close to perfect. I'm unsure whether in the future Liam will send with hardware or not. I'm not sure. Let's grab a sprocket. There is a tiny little lip here that just centers the sprocket, and I'm guessing they're not all going to be perfect, and that doesn't quite want to fit on there. So I'm just going to give it a really quick file out the inside of that sprocket. I can just kind of see a little bit of a lip in there, just where it looks like the machining process or something. So I'll give that a little file off, and hopefully that'll be a good fit. There we go, perfect. That didn't even take 2 minutes of filing. Just, you know, a little bit of something left on there, so that's sweet now. All right, so these are just small metric bolts, about 11mm long. They're about a 6mm thread. And these just go straight in and hold the sprocket on. Now, because these bolts are threaded straight into the alloy, you need to be really careful that they go in straight. The threads are clean, nothing is picked up. You want to make sure that you can get the bolts in almost all the way with your fingers. You don't want anything binding, or if it feels tight or just is it not quite right, you don't want to be stripping these threads out. And that's it. Nice close little sprocket adapter. It does suck that that Chinese sprocket covers up that gorgeous machining work. It'll be covered in mud in no time anyway, being on my board. I'll pump this wheel up and yeah, we'll fit it to that truck. All right, that's something that I've just found out and I didn't really think about. You got to make sure you have your wheel bearing on the MBS hub first, because that bearing doesn't fit through here. So I'm quickly going to swap that out, then we'll come back and throw it back on. Bearing goes in first. So there we go, we have a sweet little sprocket adapter kit. It's pretty reasonable priced. I'm not sure what Liam is going to charge for the final product. I'm guessing it's going to be pretty reasonable for what he charged me here. It's probably the same. I'll leave a link to these sprockets that it fits. And this size chain is the 25H chain, so it's quite small. Not as expensive as gear drives, yet more reliable than belts in the mud. I've used this size chain before, and yeah, I have hit rocks and stuff, and it has broken the chain. These tiny little links are so cheap. You can get like 10 of them for a few dollars. Most of the time, you can whack a link in it, away you go. And it's not that big of a deal. You definitely need to lube the chain up every so often. Yeah, I definitely think it's worth it. I'm gonna be doing a heap of testing on this chain kit. This is gonna be my main mountain board I use. I'm gonna love this thing, I reckon. I can't wait to really get on it and put some Ks on it. So yeah, anyway, let's get that adapter on that other wheel. They are sick. So the last thing you need to worry about then is the motor sprockets. So that's these little guys. I can only find these for the 25H chain. And these are called O4C sprockets, something like that. AliExpress, super cheap. You've got like a 10 and I think that's a 12 or maybe a 14. So again, you've got plenty of gearing options. You can get 2 of these for like 15 bucks. You can get those bigger sprockets for like 10 or 15 bucks a sprocket. And the chain is again like 10 or 15 bucks. They may even be cheaper than belts. Like some of them pulleys out there are pretty expensive. I'll leave a link to some of these that I'm using. I get it all off AliExpress, like I said, but it does take a fair while to get here. So if you think you want a set, order this stuff now because you are going to be waiting for it. Yeah, so that's going to be it for this one. I'm going to do a completely separate video for this build. I'm still waiting for some parts, but yeah, that'll be in another video. So I just wanted to get this out there about this chain and sprocket adapter plate that is now available. I've been asked about that so many times, so I'm glad that someone is doing that now. And yeah, I reckon a heap of you guys are going to jump on that. So massive thanks to our members and everyone out there watching. I really appreciate it. And we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.